Hey, welcome back to the eDrum Workshop. I'm Luke, and yes, that's a 20-inch electronic ride cymbal. F-Note might have got there first, but I'm not surprised that other brands have begun to follow suit. And the other brand on this occasion is Worldrummers with their Unlock line of cymbals. They're distributed by Koral Music in Israel, and the products are made in China. It was Koral Music that got in touch and who kindly sent me a bunch of products to review, so today I'm taking a look at the Unlock Jaws cymbal selection that they sent. Though they were sent to me and I'm able to keep them, as always with review videos, everything that I'll be digging into is based purely on the experience of using these cymbals, and it's entirely my own opinion, pros and cons included. I'm able to keep reviews like this independent because I'm supported by my store over at the eDrumWorkshop.com. There you can buy kits, instruments and samples for your electronic drum module. This is the best way to support my channel, and you'll also get a great upgrade to your eDrums in return. I was sent the massive 20-inch 3-zone ride cymbal along with a 2-zone 17-inch crash and a 2-zone 9-inch splash cymbal. I was also sent another couple of pads that will have their own videos. So the first thing I noticed when unboxing the 20-inch cymbal is that it's pretty thin and it has similarities to ATV or F-Note's cymbal designs. The bell area is pretty wide, but it isn't raised that high. This seems to be a bit of a trend on cheaper electronic cymbals, but I'll come back to that in the playability section. The rubber on top feels nice and I like the flat matte design. Although the Unlock logo is quite big and there is some text along the bottom edge too, they don't stand out too much because they're indented rather than raised. That said, the rubber does seem to be a bit loose and interestingly seems to curve upwards slightly on the edges of the 20-inch pad. Flipping it over, there are two jack outputs, one for the bow and edge and one for the bell, so it uses the Roland style wiring for 3 zones. There are also these small plastic hooks which I didn't understand the point of to begin with, but later figured that they're strain relief hooks for the cables, which is quite a nice if unexpected inclusion. The cymbal is also surprisingly flexible, which is nice. Another ATV, F-Note or Roland thin cymbal design cue. The 17-inch crash pad is very much a scaled down version of the 20-inch ride. Since this one's 2-zone, there's only one jack socket, but they're using the same part, so the second socket is just blocked off. On their website I spotted that there's also a 17-inch ride too, so I guess it makes sense to just use the same design and configure it for each version. The rubber also isn't quite as loose on the 17-inch pad, which is a plus. Finally, the 9-inch splash is the odd one out. The rubber on top is different in texture and style and with a different design. There's no indent around the bell and there are no logos or text. On the bottom it just has a single jack output for its 2 zones, and the design of the bottom plate is quite different. The rubber also felt pretty loose on this one, and not only that, it just looked weirdly thick and chunky, and I realised that's because the rubber on the edge just goes straight down on this pad compared to the inward profile on the other cymbals. It makes a surprising difference to the overall aesthetic, and it kinda makes it look a bit cheaper. All of the cymbals also come with a Roland style cutout groove on the bottom for a rotation stopper, but no rotation stoppers were provided with my review units. I'll come back to that. When I first played these cymbals, the feel and playability was really positive, but there were some issues that I ran into that were down to the cymbal design. These manifested on all modules that I tried, but some modules could eliminate the problems and others couldn't. The first thing that I noticed is that since these cymbals are thin and can more freely vibrate than older electronic cymbal designs, there's a very audible vibration after the initial hit. This is something that also happens with my 18-inch ATV ride cymbal. It's a little bit annoying, but fortunately I can't really hear it when I'm using my in-ears. However, if you're in a space that needs to be as quiet as possible, vibration transfer is one of the noisiest parts of electronic kits for your neighbours, so this might add to the noise transferred between the floors or connecting walls. But that's not all though, this vibration also gets picked up as light re-triggering. Again, this happened with my ATV cymbal, so I knew the fix. A combination of raising the threshold and increasing any of the settings that deal with retriggers. On many modules, these will be mask time and retrigger cancel. Fortunately, on my Roland modules and the Mimic Pro, I found a balance of these settings that eliminated the problem while retaining enough playability for my own playing style. Beyond all of that, once I'd got rid of the retriggers, these cymbals performed really well on many of my modules. The bell zone of the 20-inch ride pad is also one of the most sensitive bell zones on a third-party pad that I've played. So the only slight frustration there is the low profile of the bell zone. If you play your cymbals quite flat, it makes it more difficult to aim for a bell hit, as there's a chance that your hand could make contact with the cymbal. Ultimately, it would be great if the bell could just protrude a little bit more like an ATV or Roland cymbal. There's no bell zone on the 17-inch Crash, but if you bought the 3-zone ride version of that size, I imagine that it would play similarly. If you can get over the noise of the vibrations, playing into these cymbals feels great because of their additional flexibility. The loose rubber that I mentioned feels less premium in the hand, but so far hasn't proven to affect the playability or feel when I'm hitting them. Unlike Lemon cymbals, I didn't notice an obvious hotspot when playing at first. If I went searching for them, I could find some mild spots towards the bell, but it's not something that I noticed when playing normally. I wondered if the pads had 3 piezos like ATV cymbals, so I opened up the bottom. It turns out that they're using 2. One on either side of the cymbal towards the bell. Fortunately, this design helps with the next discovery. These cymbals can be played 360 degrees on all zones. So this would make the rotation stopper cutout a little bit redundant. However, the signal across the entire cymbal isn't completely even. This is the general pattern of sensitivity that I've experienced. It wasn't obvious when I used them with a rotation stopper because I played mostly on the side facing me, so I'd still rather use it to get the most consistent triggering. I've also been told that these cymbals were sent to me before production was finalised, and that extra accessories like a rotation stopper should be included in the final retail version. And I think that having the choice of using them or not is probably the best approach. The 20-inch ride can also be used as a 2-zone cymbal if you leave the bell jack unplugged. So let's take a closer look at each module. On my TD-50X, TD-27 and TD-17 modules, the results were basically the same. I selected Roland pad presets that were most closely matched to the sizes of each pad, then dialed in the sensitivity and rim gain to my liking. I used the threshold, mask time and retrigger cancel settings to dial out the light retriggering issues, and achieved a balance that allowed all of the pads to play really well. On the TD-50X and 27, ride pads can also use positional sensing. Unfortunately, on these pads the position is the wrong way round. There's nothing on the module that you can adjust to make that work correctly, but you can turn it off if it bugs you. If you are using the 50X or 27, I would generally recommend using the digital ride unless you're really pushed on budget. It just works better than any other ride with those modules and you won't run into these kinds of issues. On the TD-17 there's no positional sensing to worry about, so this ride has none of those problems on that module. When I first hooked up my pads to the Pearl Mimic Pro module, the crash and splash worked exactly as expected on standard Roland cymbal presets. However, when using the 20-inch pad with the Roland CY15R or ATV 18-inch presets, the bell and the edge zones were the wrong way round. If I tried swapping the cables around, I just got no signal. However, there is a simple solution. The last Mimic Pro software update came with a Lemon 18-inch ride preset, and selecting this preset resolves the zone issue. So make sure that your module is up to date if you want to use this ride. Once again, I dialed out the re-triggers with the threshold, mask time and re-trigger cancel, and everything played great after that. On the 2-box DrumIt 5 Mark II, I managed to get the crash and splash cymbals working with seemingly no issues using the CYPS pad preset. I set the gain to match my playing style, then set the threshold and increased the mask setting a little to ensure that I couldn't spot or hear any extra triggering. I had trouble with the 20-inch ride on the DrumIt 5 though, and I couldn't find a balance that made it fully playable. All of the zones worked with the CYPSB pad preset, but I was also getting a double trigger that created a distinct flam-like hit. Unfortunately, increasing the mask time to try and combat it wasn't enough, and if I set it too high, it would completely kill many intended hits. There's no other settings that deal with this behaviour, so I wouldn't recommend the 20-inch ride with a 2-box module. On the Alesis Strike module, the results were mostly poor. The 2-zone pads would randomly trigger their edge zones on a hard bow hit, and the 20-inch ride just didn't want to work well at all. At first, the bell and edge were reversed, swapping the cables around led to no signal, and there are no pad presets on the Strike module to attempt to swap them. So I thought, what the hell? And I opened up the pad to see if I could try the old Lemon cable swap trick internally. Swapping this connector to the other PCB, then swapping the jacks around on the module, did actually switch the zones to the correct assignments, however the pad still played poorly. I adjusted far more settings than I'm showing here before giving up and swapping the ride back to its original wiring. So I wouldn't recommend using these cymbals with a Strike module due to its lack of robust trigger settings. On the eDRUMin 10, dialing these cymbals in was pretty simple. I used the hold and decay settings to get rid of re-triggers and then they were good to go. Unfortunately, I couldn't get usable results with the positional sensing or bell sense functions on any of the pads, but using the 17-inch and 9-inch as standard 2-zone cymbals and the 20-inch as a 3-zone ride with both cables gave me reliable and accurate results on all of the available zones. So let's talk prices. Going over to the Worldrummers website, it appears that the prices are currently $199 for the 20-inch ride cymbal pad, $165 for the 17-inch dual zone crash, or $185 for the triple zone version, and $69 for the 9-inch dual zone splash. They can be bought directly through the Worldrummers website or through the eBay page for Koral Music. On the eBay listing, it comes up as $10 to ship to the UK, which really isn't that much to add on. This price point sits the unlock cymbals closer to the likes of Lemon than brands like F-Note, ATV or Roland, which are at least double the price. Going off my experience with my ATV and Roland cymbals, I think you're getting a really good performance to price ratio with these unlock cymbals. If you want big cymbal pads, these are a great contender as long as you've got the right module. However, they're not as cheap as buying Lemon cymbals directly through Alibaba, so comparing directly with Lemon, the unlock cymbals do have more quirks to overcome due to the more flexible design, and they flat out didn't work well on some modules. On the flip side, if you do dial out these issues, the unlock cymbals are far more satisfying to play in my opinion. I don't know what the long-term durability of these will be because I've only had them for a month or so, but I'm definitely going to be keeping these in my standard setup. They're one of the better playing experiences of any of the budget cymbals that I've tried. If you want to see the competition in action, check out this 18-inch electronic ride cymbal shootout. Head over to the eDrumworkshop.com for any of the kits that you've heard in this video and more, but above all, enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers!